Hey guys, it's ConfCollegeUse here, and you might be looking at that title and be a little confused about me saying that there's an RMC coming to New Jersey, but there kind of is, and that is with Hellcat at Clementon Park. So for those of you unfamiliar with what I'm even talking about, this ride originally opened as Tsunami back in 2004 at Clementon Park, which is down in kind of South Jersey, not too far from Cherry Hill, that kind of area. But this ride, again, it opened as Tsunami, then became J2 for a few years, and then became Hellcat, and kind of grew a bit of a reputation over the years as being a very, very rough ride. I personally rode this ride back in 2017, so quite a while ago now, and I vividly remember just how brutally rough this ride is. We can even listen to Colin from 2017 share my thoughts on this coaster.
When I first rode it, I was in the front row, and I thought it was pretty good. A little rough, but good. But then I rode it in a few different seats than the front, and it felt like one of the roughest wooden coasters I've ever ridden. Another thing I noticed was that I got zero airtime in all the other seats, but I got a little bit of airtime in the front.
However, the layout is strong, really strong, and I think that from when I first rode it to even now, that there was a lot that could be done to this ride that probably wouldn't cost that much to just make it that much better. And Clementon itself has kind of gone through a weird phase of just all kinds of different things happening to the park. Now they're owned by IB Parks, which is also known as Gene Staples Company. They own Indiana Beach, Niagara Amusement Park, a couple other parks, and it looks like they are finally putting some investments into Clementon Park. Hellcat has been standing but not operating since 2023, more than likely due to the fact that it's in desperate need of a retrack, and that retrack just hasn't come yet. But the track is now there. It is RMC 208 Retrack. So for those of you who don't know what any of that means, RMC is the company who makes all those amazing hybrid coasters as well as the single rail coasters. And those hybrid coasters have their steel iBox track that has been known for being so incredibly smooth. And they also offer this track as a retrack option for older wooden coasters. And that is exactly what is happening here at Clementon Park. So it's still going to feel like a wooden coaster, but it's going to be so much smoother. And again, it's going to be that nice, smooth RMC iBox steel track. I want to thank Thunder the Blue from r/roller coasters for sharing these images on the r/roller coasters page. They have a few images of the track itself, the new RMC 208 retrack. So you can see this one right here, very clearly the 208 retrack. And we've seen this before on Mindblower down at Fun Spot Kissimmee, where it's not painted, it's just the kind of raw metal coloring, which I think looks pretty cool. There's another shot of it right here, and that's Hellcat right there, actually. This is in that back parking lot for those of you who are familiar with the park. There's something else right here that we'll touch on in a little bit that's very interesting as well. And here's the final picture and another look at what I'm talking about. But let me first talk about the RMC stuff. Judging off the fact that this is what we see, this could be all of the track, this may not be all of it. If I had to take a wild guess, they're probably just going to focus on the high stress areas of the attraction. This ride was really rough in the valleys, and that's actually why there were trim brakes put on the first drop. A lot of people complained about that, but it was the combination of the fact that the positive G's were not overly strong, but strong enough in the valleys where it would put a pretty good beating on the track, and then there would actually be pretty good airtime over the hills, but the airtime would then, again, cause more damage to the track, which would cost the park more in maintenance. They didn't want to deal with that, so that's why the trims were put on so many years ago. So I'm hoping that now that we're seeing the RMC track come in, that maybe, just maybe, we'll see those trims go away. I think without trims and with smooth track, this ride could actually be one of the best coasters in New Jersey. Has a really strong layout. I'll play the POV for you guys now. I mean, there's definitely potential here, and I've thought this for a long time, and again, seeing this RMC track come to this ride is really exciting. But other than that, also in these images in the background, you can see what looks like a Larson Superloop. And to me, this is looking like El Diablo, not from Great Adventure, from Six Flags Over Texas. Six Flags Over Texas just closed La Vibora and El Diablo. La Vibora was their Intamin bobsled coaster, and El Diablo was their Larson Superloop. Not just any Superloop, though. This was the giant version of it. I believe it was around 100 feet tall. It was absolutely huge. And they dismantled it. They've been kind of getting rid of some of these across the Six Flags chain, and people noticed that it was being removed in such a way where it definitely was not being scrapped and had been sold. And some people spotted it being trucked across the country, some people saw it in Pennsylvania, and lo and behold, here it is in New Jersey at Clementon Park. At least assuming that this is it. You can see right here, there's red segments, back here there's black and red segments, which identically match the color scheme of El Diablo. And if I remember correctly, they already had a Superloop here, not necessarily one like this. It was the more carnival style one. It was Ring of Fire. So maybe they're replacing that with this, which is a much bigger, better version of it. I mean, Superloops, at the end of the day, they're just Superloops. They're nothing that great. But I do think that's a pretty cool addition for the park to get something that big. I mean, it's bigger than the one Great Adventure had, so there's that. But this combo of additions, I think, is really going to set Clementon Park up really well for some success. And hopefully we'll see more investment come to it in the future. Obviously, there has been kind of mixed reception in terms of how investments have been going into the IB parks. Indiana Beach obviously got some investment. They got the All-American Triple Loop coaster, which was a relocation from down in Mexico. Niagara Amusement Park, they just got a relocated family coaster. And there's also a shuttle loop coaster sitting around somewhere across all of these parks. We don't really know where it's going to wind up or if it's still going to wind up opening. Clementon has not really gotten that much investment from IB parks, which I think is unfortunate because while the park is not that large, I do still think there is some potential for growth here. You have a pretty good market with a lot of suburban neighborhoods nearby. They're not too far away from Philly. So I do think there's a lot they can do with this park. But having Hellcat closed for as long as they did really was not doing them any favors. So getting this RMC track is definitely going to be a welcome addition to the park. And it is going to be the first instance of RMC iBox track being on a coaster in New Jersey, which is why this will technically become the first RMC coaster that's not a single rail coaster in New Jersey, which I think is really, really exciting. There's no word from the park on when this is going to wind up opening. I mean, if we're seeing the track laying there like this right now, I'd say we've got quite a while until we see it installed on the coaster and open. Maybe, and this is probably a stretch, maybe we can see it by the end of the summer. I highly doubt it though. This is probably going to be a 2026 thing, but that's all I have for this video covering all of the really cool looking RMC 208 retrack coming to Clementon Park in New Jersey, as well as the relocated Superloop from Six Flags Over Texas. Again, a huge thank you to Thunder the Blue on Reddit for providing these images on the r/rollercoasters page. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, guys.